Thank you very much for your testimony, Callie, your witness, and that song that just not only took me back, but also placed me in the present. And I just want to thank you very much for your witness through your dance, because God moves in our body and God moves in our spirit. And I just want to thank you for reminding us of this. Before I really get into where we're going, because we've got a destination today, I want to begin by telling two stories. My mother recently died in May. And 2 weeks before she lay dying, she positioned herself in the front room on the couch, and she stood guard at the front door. And I said, "Mama, what is wrong?" "The Klan are coming back," she said, "and I'm making sure that they don't get you this time." And I said, "Mama, I'm safe. It's all right." The other thing she worried so much about, she would say, "Ruby, what about the children? What about the children? We have not taught them how to survive. We have not put the right things in their backpacks. And they're going through life empty-handed and abandoned." And she would say, "Do something about the children." I have my mother's spirit in me. I have my mother's voice in me. And I come from a long line. See, when we grew up, we called these women race women. Not because they were racist, but because they looked out for the race. They were determined to educate their children, advance the race, and preserve our rights and liberties. And they put themselves, their money, and everything on the line, and was able to create out of the ashes of a segregated school creative geniuses, profound leaders, incredible community members, and dedicated parents. I want to say this morning that I come out of that tradition. I come out of that. I'm a descendant of these women and men who built a counterculture of education right in the eyes of white people who didn't know what was going on because they thought we were in plantation schools. And they built a long train running towards excellence. And throughout the South, whether it was in Birmingham, Alabama, Parker, Montgomery, Carver, Columbus, Georgia, Carver, Fort Valley, Hunt High, Savannah Beach High, they built what is called now by historians good schools. Out of the twigs of life, they built good schools. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of black mother's son is as important as the killing of white mother's sons, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Good morning. I want to thank Mary, my dear friend, my colleague, my sister in struggle, for allowing me to be a part of this circle, to allow me to be a part of the sisterhood. And I want to personally thank Mary for her witness, for her persistent desire and movement for change, and for her willingness to go all of the way to assist black women, our families, and our children in how to survive and thrive where there's so much trouble in the land. Thank you, Mary. As I think about where we stand today, we've been here before. We have been here before. At the end of Black Reconstruction, where Black people had reached the highest level of our political power, where we had built schools, where we had hollowed out territories that had been closed to us, where we had created outstanding scholars and community leaders and parents and preachers, the South came together to redeem itself and created 100 years of terror. 100 years of terror, and we called it segregation. And Black people found ourselves, as James Weldon Johnson reminded us in Lift Every Voice and Sing, found ourselves walking once again on the stony road of oppression, where there appeared to be no way out. A historian called it the nadir of the Black experience, the worst, the depth, the bottom. And we were facing, the only time our children appeared in newspapers was when they had killed somebody, because they wanted the nation to believe that Black people were moral defects, that we were people who hurt other people, and whatever happened to us when they lynched us, lynching was on the rise, it was because we deserved it, because we were not fit to live amongst decent people. And if you allowed the Black man loose in society, he would ravish everything that was good in American society. This was in the 1890s, and toward the turn of the 20th century. We've been there before. But what is different, and hear me, that no matter what people said about the children, our parents refused to believe that they had birthed defective children. They did not believe that their children were by nature criminals. They did not believe that if you do the crime, you do the time, because they knew that the criminal justice system was unequal. And there were many people who did the crime that didn't do the time. And so that they loved their children into wholeness. Now, that didn't mean that everybody was perfect. That didn't mean that mistakes didn't get made. But I'm talking about a soul spirit. I'm talking about a spirit of a people who sacrificed everything that they had to make sure that they and their children would not be broken-winged birds. I'm a descendant of that work. We find ourselves and Black women came together in Charleston, South Carolina at the beginning of the 20th century and looked at the territory and found that there was much work to do. And Mary Church Terrell, who was in charge of the rights of Black women, who worked with Black women to hollow out our voices in the midst of enslavement, in the midst of terrorism. They tell me, I wasn't there, of course, but historians tell me that she strode out on the stage with her white gloves, and there were women, wall-to-wall women. And she asked one simple question, and the audience went wild. And her question was, my sisters, can you do this work, our work, in the heat of the day? We're in the heat of the day. And I ask you the same question. My sisters, can you do our work in the heat of the day? Yes. I want you to think about that. Yes. In the heat of the day. What is the heat of the day we're dealing with today? We are dealing with propaganda that has stolen our minds. And what we see in each other is the worst and not what is best. Yes. We look at neighborhoods. We allow people to call our neighborhoods hoods. Reduce our neighborhoods to the name called hood. And you know, I lived in big houses. My mama got sick. I came home. And my mama gave me the little house in Carver Heights that I grew up in. And she would say to me, this is going to be a good place for you. And I'm thinking, a good place for me? This house is too small. And I just did not want that house. I just got to be honest. I did not want that house. But my mother insisted that I have that house. And recently I wrote a ode to my mother, and I said my mother could see in hearts, and she knew that I needed to be home, because she knew as long as I sat somewhere in a big house, I might pontificate on the issues, but I was not doing the daily grind. I didn't know what it meant to get poor services and higher services because of your zip code. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know that you go to a grocery store and you get inferior meat while other people are eating high on the hog. I didn't know that. I didn't know that police ride around in your neighborhood like a military squad just waiting on something to happen. I didn't know that. And I was complaining one day, and this came from a white friend. I was complaining one day about my house that my mama gave me that I was living in. She said to me, you know what? Your mother gave you a great gift. She said, this is the healthiest neighborhood that I've been in. She says, people see it differently, but I see it this way. People sit on the porch and they still talk to each other. The children still play in the street. You go, Ruby, absolutely. And Ruby, you go away traveling for 3 and 4 weeks, and when you come home, your grass has been cut, your garbage has been put out, and nobody has broken in your house. There is nothing. And so I had a whole different change of heart. Instead of seeing what was wrong with everybody, I began to see what was right. And what could we build on? Not tear down, but what could we build on? We have been dealing with tremendous assaults. First of all, that lying Ronald Reagan went around the country minimizing black women to being welfare queens who did not love our children and who would rather do anything but take care of our children. So these glorious grandmothers and mothers and aunts who had tilled generations of African American youth, who had sacrificed greatly, who used their own money to buy school equipment for children, who told you, girl, you better get your butt out the street before I tell your mama, stood guard over us. All of that was forgotten. Black women who sacrificed in Tent City for the civil rights movement so that for another generation themselves could have a chance. All of that was forgotten. And you know the sad thing is, we started repeating what Ronald Reagan said. And we did not remember the women whom I have described. For every mother who deserted her child, there were 15 or 20 other mothers who did not. And in the black community, we have always forgiven. Black people had to do that kind of adjustment because we were living under very difficult circumstances. And so we had to be a flexible people and a humane person, because we have been treated so inhumanely. We have been so trampled on that we had to have a whole different look on life prior to, we were not self-righteous. Oh, but have we become a self-righteous people now? We were righteous, which has to do with mercy and justice. Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a steady stream. There's a difference between righteousness and self-righteousness. And so we come to a place where we become very self-righteous. We don't have any compassion. We look at people who are poor. We look at people who are hungry. And let me tell you something. Let me just say it before. Don't be deceived by the rhetoric of the day. When they talk about the working poor, they're talking about white folks. Because they ain't talking about you, because they don't believe that black people work. All right? So don't get trapped into that rhetoric. And then when somebody tells you that it's about the middle class, tell them God doesn't have any class. God has the people of God. And so that everybody, according to God's vision on earth, has the right to the tree of life. Don't listen. Be careful about what you're listening to and what you're repeating. Even if somebody we love say it, you got to really analyze it. We're living in a terrible spiritual crisis. Hallelujah. We're living in a crisis where televangelists, those people who once stood guard over slavery, are now telling us about who God should be. And we listen to it. But I want to tell you that the God that black people knew was the God of Exodus. It was a God who was as much concerned about our social conditions as he was about our personal souls. He was a God who said, let my people go. He was a God who looked, who was on the side of the poor. He was a God who said, never forget where I brought you from. Because God understood that if you allowed other people to tell you who God was, then you would fall down and worship at the whiteness at the altar of demons and demigods. And we forgot who God is. They told us, and we believed them, that God is a God of prosperity. That the verification of God's love for you is what you own and possess. And that if you don't have anything, then you ain't nobody. If you ain't got nothing, you ain't nobody. We believe that. So we drape ourselves up in clothing. We go out and buy things that ultimately will reduce. If you don't believe things don't matter, watch your mama die and see what the things are that dead people, dying people struggle with. It ain't about their house. It ain't about their cars. It ain't about what friends they made, what sorority. You know, it's about their soul and their relationships to God. What did I do that I could have done better? And thank God for what I did do that was good. That at the end, that's what counts. And are my children going to be all right? So we forgot that, and we began to judge people about from what they had, for what they had and what they didn't have, and we began to create in our society. We always kind of had that way of looking down on people, but it wasn't this deep. It has become so deep. Let me tell you, these poor mothers whose sons are being killed in Georgia, who are being hung and saying that they committed suicide. No, the press won't talk to them, and black churches won't deal with them because they don't speak good English. Because they're poor, they live in trailer homes, and they don't speak what they think is good English. And they feel like they are poor representation of the race. And we have got to get that together. We have got to. Their children matter too. Their children count too. They love their children. And one's place in God's creation has nothing to do with where you live and what you wear. And it's a disgrace that these women have not been able to get their stories out to the world. All of our fashionable leaders go and talk with them, and when they don't speak a certain kind of way, or when they are a little bit overweight, or when they live in trailer homes, they walk away because that's nobody glamorous to put before the TV set. We have got to change that, my sisters. Our sisters are in terrible crisis. Their children are being hung. We were down in Valdosta, Cheryl said. Black boy went to school, never came home, found wrapped up in a blanket, in a mat, beaten as bad as Emmett Till. Another black young man was shot in the back by 2 white guys. Another black man in Texas was found hanging from a tree. Jason Smith, a 14-year-old guy from Arrows, Louisiana, was swimming in a pond with these white kids. The next thing we know, they say he drowned. And when the father came to claim his body parts were gone. He had been castrated, And this man, Mr. Jason Smith, is running around the country saying to the world, what did they do to my baby? Somebody tell me, what did they do to my child?
YouTube his story. It's out there.
It's out there.
Yes. Jason Smith.
Yeah, Jason.
Now, I want to say something, and I got to tip real lightly over this, but I want to tell you about my God. I want to tell you that my God does not want me to be totally obsessing on myself without loving other people. My God wants me to take the power that God gives me and to go out and create a kingdom of God where all people can sit and rest and be together, where the lion will lie down, a nonviolent world. God is not worried every day incessantly about whether or not I have the money to buy a new dress. And I'm going to say something to you that's going to shock you, but I got to say it. When you talk to God and when God talks to you, you have to be in a period of great discernment. You have to make sure you separate your ego from God's voice. You got to know that it's not you telling yourself something that you want and that it's really God. And you can't do that unless you go into deep meditation, because that's a difficult thing to do. So this whole way of trivializing God today, we live in a world where we trivialize God, and our parents would never have trivialized God. When God spoke to them, it was a sacred moment and not an everyday occurrence. Because they knew that God had given them some kind of agency, some kind of mental and spiritual territory to do some of that work for themselves. And the danger of saying that God told you this is that then you claim that what you're doing is divine, and nobody can critique it. So we better watch out. We better watch out, because we are trivializing God. And in doing that, it makes us lazy. And I want to already say, and I know I'm stepping on some theology, but I got to put it out there. It's not already done. If it were already done, why the heck would God want us to struggle? If it were already done, then it meant that we were meant to be enslaved. If it were already done, then it means that we were meant to be in segregation. And it meant that what happened to us happened because it was already done. And I'm saying to you, with God, there is not a period. There's always commas. And so nothing is already done, because God is not a predestination God. God is a God of grace. God doesn't entrap us in our history. God doesn't entrap us in bad places. And God gives us open doors to walk through. The problem is we don't take them. But God gives them to us. And I want to say to you, as black women, you have always played a critical role in the survival and thriving of our community in the most adverse circumstances. You have always been the foundation upon which the nation stood and still stands. We have hit a hard rock. Now, hear what I said. I said our role was always to what? Give the nation a foundation and a direction, right? Whether it was in Sunday school, whether it was in the schools, whether it was sitting on the front porch. We're in a hard time, so I want you to think about this as we go forward. We were race women. But if you tell people that there is no racism, if you say that we are beyond racism, then what is our task? That's why we're running around in circles not knowing what to do, because we haven't defined our task. Because the truth of the matter is there's still racism. We're not beyond racism. And the elimination of racism not only elevates the souls of black folk, but it elevates the soul of the nation. And for those of us who claim to be Christians, it makes us better Christians, because it makes us say in our hearts, I love everybody. I love everybody, and you can't make me hate you in my heart. And so we are put before us a charge. We've got a charge to keep. As black women, we've got a charge to keep. We must go back and resume our positions as community. You know, even sororities and fraternities that move their office out of the black community in an invisible space where if I needed to be talking to them, I couldn't find them.
We're still in the community.
Which one are you?
Alpha Kappa Alpha.
Well,
Omicron,
good for
Omega.
you, but
We never
many
had
of them,
community.
many of them.
Stepped on a sorority.
No, but I didn't.
They know we're there.
But wait, no, I'm not going to take that back.
I
Now,
had to
you
take
might
it
be
up
an
for them.
exception, but I'm going to tell you that the rule is, from what I've seen, is that the sorority houses are located in white communities.
Not the one here.
But that's what-
one. That's okay.
Right.
That's okay.
No, none of the ones.
I'm going to maintain that because we've
That's
done
what
a
I said.
study of it. I'm going to maintain it because the kids did a study of it. And that was one of the things that they found out, the students from Spelman and Georgia State. Because just like all of us moved out of the community to try to find better housing, I did it. I'm not going to justify it. I thought I was moving into a utopia. I moved into a white community and left the black community bare. And then had a nerve to say, oh, God, look at the community. Well, yeah, look at the community, all the strong people. Everybody left the doors wide open. And businesses got either destroyed or they left. And so we are at a crisis, my sisters. But don't despair, because God has placed us in this unique position because our histories have shown that we've got the goods to do it.
That's right.
And I want to just close by saying that there is great power in this room today. Black women power. There is black women power that held us together when most nations and people would have been destroyed through captivity, enslavement, and apartheid. There is great black female power in this room today, and I say to you, sisters, claim it. There is great resilience in this room today. And by resilience, I mean standing firm, even when your knees are quivering, figuring out how to make a way out of no way, and doing it without becoming broken-winged birds. There is resilience in this room, my sisters. Claim it. There is hope and joy in this room today. Despite our seriousness and our understanding of the seriousness of life, black women have always, in many ways, loved to have somewhat of a good time. They wanted joy in their lives. You know, so you wore your hats on Sunday and strutted on Monday in your fine outfits. And so I'm saying, claim that.
Right.
Claim that. It is ours to claim. There is hospitality in this room. We come from a people who always had an extra plate around the welcome table. And as we say, rarely met people as strangers. There is hospitality in this room today, my sisters. Claim it. There is hope. No, I want to do this one. There is grief. Let's take a deep breath. There is grief in this room today, my sisters. Black women have always had to navigate the element of grief and losses while still standing tall with a compassionate heart. And we're still in that position today. Now, I know everybody says that you got to celebrate. You know, I lost my mother, and folks were saying, celebrate her life. I do celebrate her life. But I also, like Jesus, wept when Lazarus was dead. You have to be whole. You can't go from one extreme and leave out the other. There is something missing when somebody you love has been subtracted from your life. And if you don't grieve losses, whether it's the loss of a child, whether it's the loss of a neighborhood, whether it's the loss of something that was central to our survival, you know what you're going to do? You're going to turn it inward, and we're going to lash out at each other. There is black women grief in this room today. Claim it and transform grief, not into despair, not into apathy, not into bitterness and angry, but as an opportunity for transformation and change. Isn't God good that we can turn grief into an opportunity for transformation and change? That is the grace of God. I also want to just finally tell you that there are our stories in this room. There are our lives in this room. There are our relationships, both the challenges, because relationships, you know, I hate when folks say, talk this stuff about what is the word they use about pathology of the family? What is the word?
Dysfunctional.
Dysfunctional. Oh, yeah. I hate that word like you hate hurtful. You know why I hate it? Because some things might be going wrong, but there are other things that goes right in a family. Nothing is totally bad. Nothing is totally dysfunctional. So we've got to stop referring to ourselves as being dysfunctional. God didn't make dysfunctional creatures. He made people who make mistakes, but we are not dysfunctional, because even in the midst of our mistakes, we function. We might survive, but we're functioning. God does not make dysfunctional families and people. So we've got to, and lastly, I want to say to you, my black sisters, we have believed some terrible things about ourselves. And until we become born again in terms of who we believe, what we are, and grab our children and tell the stories, our stories, because it is our stories that give them the courage and hope to move forward. I know when my mother used to tell me her stories, I didn't think I was listening, but I really was listening. And when she would say, I worked my hands to the ground and stone and rock, and you better go over there and make good grades, I might rebel and roll my eyes, but hey, I heard that. I heard it, all right? I heard, and I couldn't disappoint her. You know why? Because I heard her suffering. I heard her struggle. I heard my poor mother working herself to death for her children, and I respected that. So yes, I was wild at Tuskegee. Yes, I drank wine by the Catawba Pink down by the pond. Yes, I did all of that. I swam naked with the boys in the pond. But at the same time, my mama's voice was saying, get your butt to class. And so there has to be something in young people that they can hear beyond the clutter of the party that will make them come home at midnight and take care of the business of growing up. But if you're not talking to your children and don't protect them, because life ain't going to protect them. Tell them that this is a hard world if you don't work to survive. Tell them the truth. Don't tell them that, oh, if you work real hard, you're going to get it. Well, yeah. But we live in a world, our parents worked themselves to death. Generations of black folks worked themselves to death. It's not quite that simple. It goes into who you know, what you know, and all about how you know. And if you're at the wrong place at the wrong time, you're out of the rhyme. And so we got to really be clear about that. We got to stand up. And my challenge, because I believe in your stories, I believe in your lives, and I'm so glad that we are putting the shame we are laying it bare at the altar. We're putting it at the altar, and we're leaving it there. Because the shame is not what we have done, but the shame comes in when we refuse to do anything better. But there is nothing, that's what God tells us, that there's no place that we can't come out of. My father was in the Army and came home with what they call post-traumatic stress syndrome after the Korean War. And he was a man who had serious challenges. But what I learned, but he would walk around the street and people say, oh, good morning, Reverend Sales. treated him with the utmost of respect. You know why? Because of how he carried himself. And my father taught me that there was no place so far down that we couldn't stand above it. And so we have to teach our children that so that they don't wallow in what they think are the only options for them. And finally, let's stop calling each other bitches. I'm tired of that. That's not a loving term. Our kids hear it on TV and they emulate that. That is not loving. Don't call your friend, your sister, your best girlfriend a bitch. That's not a compliment.
You only.
That's like calling somebody a nigger. Don't do that. That ain't love. Call each other sister. Call each other friend. Call each other mama. Respect each other. And don't let your daughters believe that their only claim to life is booty duty. Tell them that they don't have to do booty calls, that there's a great wide world opening for them. And guess what? We're going to get ourselves together and we're going to help them walk in those doors. Is that correct? There's great optimism in this room. And will we say, like our sisters did at the turn of the 20th century, repeat after me, we can do our work in the heat of the day. We can do our work in the heat of the day. We can, we will, and we must. Amen.
And thank you, Ruby. So much
Thank
of what
you.
you said is important to us. I had a piece here called saying timing is everything. There's a mystique about timing. When it's right, it's fabulous. When it's wrong, it's a disaster. It takes listening to the inner self to make it work. Not just in comedy, but in all life. Oddly, we forget to give the same room to God and to ourselves. So.